This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by MJ Today Media, the publisher of this podcast, our weekly show Marijuana Today, as well as the newly renamed MJ Today Media newsfeed, formerly known as the Forefront Daily Headlines email newsletter. With our audience and reach growing by the day, there's no better time to sign up as a sponsor than now. Lock in today's prices for up to a year by emailing me at advertising@mjtodaydaily.com. That's advertising@mjtodaydaily.com. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Thursday, June 15th, 2017, and you're tuned in to episode 269 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Our top story of the day brings us to Massachusetts, where yesterday evening state legislative leaders decided at the last moment to pull a vote on a proposed marijuana bill that would have greatly increased the tax rate levied against adult use marijuana sales, handed more power over licensing to local towns and municipalities, and expanded the size of the state's Cannabis Control Commission, as well as removing it from the control of the state treasurer. The bill doing all these things was supposed to be voted on last night, but after a storm of opposition sprung up as details of the bill circulated, legislative leaders said discussion on the matter would be tabled. This is a good story to click over for the full read. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com and on our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily. Tom Angel over at MassRoots picked up on a story about a collection of marijuana prohibitionists who are criticizing the federal government for maintaining the drug's Schedule I listing under the Controlled Substances Act. Tom found a document published online by the U.S. Government Publishing Office that shows that a group calling itself Friends of the National Institute on Drug Abuse submitted written testimony to a Senate subcommittee that said that they were worried that the Schedule I listing given to cannabis was limiting research opportunities and encouraged the NIDA to, quote, provide a short report on the barriers to research that result from the classification of marijuana as a Schedule I substance, unquote. The interesting twist here is the membership list of the group Friends of the National Institute on Drug Abuse, because there are some pretty recognizable prohibitionist names there, including former drug czar Barry McCaffrey, Just Say No poster boy Kevin Sabet, and former Congressman Patrick Kennedy, founder of the Sabet vehicle Smarter Approaches to Marijuana. This is another good one to dive into for all the nuance. Our final top story of the day is a piece in Scientific American that does a great job of picking apart the claim by U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions that the Department of Justice needs to be free to prosecute medical marijuana users and providers so as to fight a, quote, historic drug epidemic, unquote, while battling nefarious and shadowy drug traffickers. One of the more exciting things about the article is that it references a 2016 study conducted by researchers at the University of Michigan, published in the Journal of Pain, that found that patients living with chronic pain used an average of 64% less opioid-based medicines when they were also using medical marijuana. The particularly exciting thing is that the pain study was done with the help of my friend Mark Passerini and his medical marijuana dispensary, The Home of Medicine, who, in full disclosure, is a longtime sponsor of my podcasts. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, ourselves. If you have a legal marijuana business, product, or service that you need to advertise, then look no further than MJ Today Media, publishers of this podcast, our weekly show Marijuana Today, as well as the newly renamed MJ Today Media newsfeed, formerly known as the Forefront Daily Headlines email newsletter. We've run the demographic surveys and collected all the right numbers, and we know that our audience is the best in the industry. They're highly educated, high earners who either work in legal marijuana or who are actively trying to get in. Our listeners trust us to bring them the straight scoop on things, and they take action on our sponsors. I mean, heck, you're tuning in right now and you're a smart decision maker in the marijuana business. Reach all the right people with MJ Today Media. Email me to lock in today's prices for up to a year at advertising@mjtodaydaily.com. That's advertising@mjtodaydaily.com. All right, time for the blitz. A bipartisan coalition of U.S. lawmakers plans to introduce a proposed bill today that would extend a number of protections to the legal marijuana industry. The so-called CARES Act is a revised version of an earlier bill that would have changed marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2 and protected banks from doing business with the industry. The new version of the CARES Act is not as ambitious as the first version and hence stands a better chance of passing. If it survives its way through the lawmaking process, the new bill would make permanent the protections that medical marijuana enjoys from federal prosecution from the temporary Rohrabacher-Blumenauer Amendment, strip CBD from the Controlled Substances Act entirely, free up military veterans to get medical marijuana recommendations, and make it easier for researchers to get marijuana to study. We'll track this one as it progresses. Oregon Senator Ron Wyden released a statement yesterday criticizing U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions for his recent request to Congress of the power to crack down on medical marijuana users and providers. In his statement, Senator Wyden said, quote, "Jeff Sessions is again showing he only values upholding states' rights when he thinks the state is right. Any attempt to waste taxpayer dollars by going after law-abiding citizens would run contrary to the science on marijuana, not to mention basic common sense." Unquote. On Tuesday night, the city of Denver held a public hearing on the social marijuana use pilot program passed by voters in the fall. Regular listeners should remember this story as the city works out details for how it will allow businesses to open up space for their customers to consume marijuana. As the Cannabist piece has it, reactions to the evolving set of rules is generally falling into one of two camps. Locals love the restrictive measures, while business leaders and industry folks say the overly burdensome rules will prevent most businesses from actually taking part in the program. The state of Arkansas is working at the rules and regulations for their medical marijuana program, and on Tuesday, the state legislature's Administrative Rules and Regulations Subcommittee approved a set of guidelines for medical marijuana operators that were submitted by 3 state agencies: the Department of Finance and Administrative's Alcoholic Beverage Control Division, the State Department of Health, and the State Medical Marijuana Commission. Among the proposed rules are requirements that at least 60% of a medical marijuana business's owners needs to be residents of Arkansas, and that license holders will be restricted to 1 facility per license. Up here in my neck of the woods in Maine, yesterday morning the state held a public hearing on a number of proposed rule changes to the state's medical marijuana system. The Portland Press Herald is reporting that around 100 people attended the meeting, with many sharing their thoughts on the proposed changes that include removing the ability of doctors to recommend medical marijuana using telemedicine, reducing the maximum plant count afforded to patients and caregivers, and imposing mandatory inspections on home grows. This is a good one to click over to read if you're into Maine news. Our final story of the day swings us back to Maine, where on Monday, the state Senate voted to approve a bill that protects medical marijuana patients from being bumped from organ transplant lists. Regular listeners should remember my previous reporting on this one. The approved measure, LD 764, has already been passed by the State House, so now it heads to the desk of Governor Paul LePage for his final deliberation. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, MJ Today Media, and to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with Marijuana Today. Today.
One take, Shay. One take.